This is gaethje. Let's start at the bottom. The first fight is Luke Sanders versus Patrick Williams. And to me, I think that wrestling and technique-wise, these guys are probably about even. I think that Saunders is just the better striker, and his striking technique is just better overall. I think that Saunders has the better gas tank too. I think that as long as he doesn't get clipped early in the first round, I think Patrick Williams slows down significantly as the fight goes on. And I think Saunders is going to win by a second or third round KO. I think he's really good. He's just gotten really unlucky in his last two fights and got caught. But I think Luke Saunders is going to bounce back and win by second round finish. Next is Matthew Lopez versus Alejandro Lopez. And to me, Matthew Lopez, I think he had a lot of hype, but he's just been looking okay. I think other than him having a good gas tank and aggressive wrestling style, he just seems like a Diego Sanchez at 135 to me. I think that Alejandro Perez has shown that his takedown defense and his striking technique keep getting better. I just don't think Matthew Lopez will be able to take him down and control him like he tries to do. I think Alejandro Perez is going to stuff the takedowns and just outstrike him from the outside for 3 rounds and win a decision. Next is John Buller versus Adam Wisnowski. And to me, John is just too strong a wrestler. I think that he's going to be in the top 15 in the heavyweight division pretty soon. I think that his wrestling and his striking both really look good. And I think he's just going to be able to out-wrestle this dude like he did in his last fight. I think he's going to hit the takedowns on Adam whenever he wants and maybe get a late finish with ground and pound. Next is Diego Lima versus Yushin Okami. And to me, I think Yushin Okami is definitely towards the tail end of his career, but I think in this fight, their striking is probably going to be about even, and he's going to have a huge advantage in wrestling and size. I think, Diego has good jiu-jitsu, but I don't think he's going to be able to get Yushin down. And if he does, I don't think he'll be able to hold him down. I think Yushin's just too big and too strong of a wrestler. I think Yushin also is going to have a cardio advantage, and I think that the longer this fight goes, the more likely it is Yushin's going to get like a third-round TKO from ground and pound just because he's going to be less tired. So that's what I got. I think Yushin's going to win by third round TKO. Next is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, yeah. Shauna Dotson versus Lauren Miller. And to me, Shauna Dotson looked really impressive in the Ultimate Fighter finale. She's this really big chick who hits really hard and has solid boxing. I think that Lauren Miller showed really aggressive wrestling in the Dana White looking for a fight series, but to me, she just looks alright. I think that Chandra Dotson just looks too big and too powerful. I think she's going to stuff the takedowns and eventually land the big punch and probably win by KO in the first round. Next is Gilbert Burns versus Dan Moore. And to me, Dan Moore looks like he's pretty well-rounded, decent everywhere, but I think he's taking this fight on too short notice against a guy who's too good of a grappler. I think that sooner or later Gilbert's going to hit that takedown. I think once Gilbert takes Dan down and is on top of him, he's going to win by submission. I think it's going to happen in the first round. Like I said, I just think the grappling advantage is too big for Gilbert in this fight. Next is Krzysztof Jotko versus Brad Tavares. And to me, these guys are about even. I just think Brad Tavares can keep a higher pace, and that's what's going to favor him in this fight. I think overall striking technique-wise, Krzysztof's probably a little bit better, but like I said, I think Brad Tavares can keep a higher pace and will be able to push him against the fence when he needs to, kind of like Dave Branch did. I think he's just going to be able to do more damage against the fence and just win a decision. I think, like I said, his volume and his pace is just going to be the defining factor in this fight, and I got Tavares winning by 30-27 decision. Next is Wilson Hayes versus John Moraga, and to me this fight goes one of two ways. I think Wilson Hayes is either going to get the takedowns when he wants and just control John on the ground, or I think John's just going to be able to knock him out. And this fight is super tough just because I really want to pick John Moraga. I feel like he's looked really good in his last couple fights, but I do feel like just stylistically this is a horrible matchup for him. I think that in his last fight he just caught that Russian dude really early, but that was a bad matchup for him too. It's really hard, but I'm going to lean towards Wilson Hayes. I think Wilson's going to be able to get the takedowns and just control John for 3 rounds. And, he might even get a late submission, but I'm just going to go with decision for Wilson Hayes. Next is Muslim Smalkatov versus Ricky Rainey. And to me, Ricky's just a decent striker, and he's going up against an amazing striker. I don't think Ricky has the wrestling to just take Muslim down and control him for 3 rounds. I think that what's going to happen is it's just going to be a striking fight, and eventually once Muslim finds his range, he's going to knock him out. Like I said, I think the striking level is just too high for Muslim, for somebody to just straight up strike with him like that if you're just okay. And like I said, I think Muslim is going to find his distance and then the second round win by KO. Next is Tim Boetsch versus Antonio Carlos Jr. And to me, the biggest thing is, can Antonio Carlos Jr. take this fight to the ground? And I'm not sure he will be able to. I think Tim Boetsch has got the big advantage in the wrestling. I mean, grappling-wise, yeah, Antonio Carlos Jr. is going to have the advantage if he's on top, but I don't think he will. I think this fight's going to be standing, and I think that Tim Boetsch is just a much better striker. And I think Tim Boetsch is eventually going to win by knockout or KO, probably in the first round. Next is Michelle Waterson versus Courtney Casey, and this fight's really tough just because Courtney Casey's been looking really good recently, but I still feel like Michelle Waterson's just a tick above her in terms of technique, especially on the ground. I think that if it's striking, Courtney Casey's probably got a little bit more power, but it's still really close. But I do think this fight's going to hit the ground sooner or later, and when it does, I think Michelle Waterson's going to have a huge advantage and eventually probably win by like rear naked choke or something. Next, we got Israel Anderson versus Marvin Vettori, and to me, Marvin Vettori, sorry, just a little throat thing. Marvin Vettori, he's much better than the last guy that Israel fought. I think that his takedown ability is much better, and his ability to control shit on the ground is better. His jiu-jitsu is also really solid. He's got great guillotines, great triangles. I still think Israel's going to win. I'm just saying I think that he's much bigger and a much better striker than the last guy Israel fought. I think people are giving Israel a little bit too much credit for fighting a guy who's basically just a decent wrestler. You know, this is his first real test. If he can do if he can copy like what he did in his last fight against Marvin, then that's a huge upper. That would make me believe he could be in the top 15. But this is his first real test, and I think he's going to win. But like I said, don't be shocked if Marvin pulls off the upset. Next is Carlos Condit versus Alex Oliveira, and to me, this fight depends entirely on if you think Carlos Condit is completely done or not. I don't think he is. I think that conditioning-wise, he's going to have the advantage, and I think that in terms of overall striking technique, he's going to have the advantage. In terms of grappling, Alex is probably the better wrestler, but I think he's not great at defending submissions. So I think that Carlos should be able to hit a triangle or something like that if they're on the ground. And like I said, I think this is just going to be a back-and-forth fight up until Carlos wins, but with a finish. I'm glad he's getting a fight like this because this is a winnable fight for him. But like I said, I think that Carlos, as long as you think he's still got something in him, which I think he does, he should be able to win this fight. And I think Carlos Condit's going to win by like third round finish. Next is Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje. And to me, this fight's probably going to be amazing for however long it lasts. And I think it's probably going to last until the third. I think the problem with Dustin is that, you know, he's not the greatest at avoiding firefights. Like, if you look at the fight with Bobby Green, the fight with Jim Miller, I mean, he knocked out Bobby Green, but he was still getting hit. He wasn't getting hit as hard, but Bobby Green was forcing him to brawl with him, and so was Jim Miller. And the way he kind of got out of it in the Jim Miller fight was he was just able to wrestle. And the same thing with the Pettis fight. Like, Pettis was doing a little bit better than him on the feet, so he was able to just take him down whenever he wanted. You know, I know people are going to point out the Eddie Alvarez fight, but he was just out striking that whole fight, so he didn't need to take him down. This is different. I don't think he's going to be able to avoid the brawl with Justin, and I don't think he's just going to be able to take Justin down. I think Justin's too much. His wrestling is much better than Dustin's is. I think this is going to be like a back and forth brawl fight like most of Justin's fights are, and as long as his chin isn't gone, which I don't think it is, I think that he's eventually going to wear Dustin Poirier down. I should be saying the last name because their names are so similar. But Justin Gaethje, I think the leg kicks are going to be a big thing too, because we've seen Dustin Poirier, his leg got hurt in that fight with Jim Miller, so he's probably more susceptible to the leg kicks. And like I said, I'm going to lean towards Justin Gaethje because I feel like he's going to force this to be a brawly fight. And Dustin Poirier, he doesn't have the greatest foot movement in terms of like that Frankie Edgar style type of foot movement where I don't think he can avoid the brawl. I think Justin Gaethje is going to be able to push forward on him and mix it up like how he usually does. And I think he's just going to be outlast Dustin Poirier. I don't think he's going to be able to I don't think Poirier's going to be able to take him down. And I don't think he's going to be able to outstrike him like how he did to Eddie, where he's going to be able to stand on the outside. I think Gaethje's just going to be on him too much and eventually win by TKO probably in the third round. Like I said, this is probably going to be an amazing fight for as long as it lasts, but I'm leaning towards Justin Gaethje. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Please like and subscribe.